Welcome everyone. I'm Janet Barlow and I'm the Executive Director of Hike Nova Scotia. And welcome to our Volunteer Recruitment and Retention webinar. This is offered as part of the Trail Sector Capacity Building Project through Hike Nova Scotia's Trail Builders Network, and it's supported by the Nova Scotia Department of Communities, Culture, Tourism and Heritage. So the Trail Builders Network is our capacity building hub for trail groups, First Nations, and municipalities that build and maintain hiking trails. We represent the largest group of trail users and we represent trail building groups. Hike NS was approached by Communities, Culture, Tourism and Heritage, CCTH, to spearhead this project because they see, as we've seen as well, that many trail group boards are struggling to keep their organizations afloat. Volunteers are hard to find and they're aging out, and for folks who just want to build and maintain trails, this work can be challenging. So we hope this webinar series will help the trail sector. And I do want to acknowledge that we are in Mi'kma'ki, which is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. And I do want to note that the Mi'kmaq were the first hikers, and there are trails across this province that are literally thousands of years old. A little housekeeping before we get started. So this will be about an hour and a half in total. If you have questions, you can ask them throughout. You could put your hand up and unmute and ask, or if you're a little shy, you can write your question in the chat. Yeah, feel free to ask throughout. If you're not speaking, please stay muted just so that we can cut down on the background noise. And if you're having technical problems, just see the troubleshooting link in your confirmation email and try the settings icon on your screen, or you could try phoning in as well. A little bit about Hike Nova Scotia. So we are a provincial nonprofit and we're just trying to grow a culture of hiking in our beautiful province. So we strive to be the voice for those who hike, walk, and snowshoe, as well as those who build and maintain hiking trails. And we're about hiking promotion, education, and just encouraging people to get out on the trails. And so we do that in a number of ways. We offer our seasonal guided hike and walk series. We run the NS Walks Walking Group program. We run the Hiking Summit annual conference. It's coming up May 30th to June 1st in Bridgewater, so it's coming up soon. We offer a number of skill building in-person courses as well as webinars. We promote the International Appalachian Trail in Nova Scotia. We have the Hiker Challenge where you can earn badges, and we have our Young Hikers Club and of course the Trail Builders Network. So we are member-based and paid members get lots of perks and discounts. And we also have a website and social media that are really great resources for hiking and trail information and events. So now for the good stuff. We're getting close. And I do want to note that as part of the webinar series, we've got a whole bunch of them and they're all online now. And after tomorrow, this one tonight will be online for you to access and replay along with some of the resources. For example, PDFs of the slides that were used or other resources as well. And also a note, there is still a little bit of time for folks, if you're a trail group who would like a little bit of support over the summer, we have some trail support coordinators through Hike Nova Scotia who can help out some groups. And so we do have another spot or two. So if you want to apply, you can go online at the link that I'll send in an email after this webinar, and you can sign up for that. And that is it. Now's to get to the interesting stuff, why you've all come tonight. Stop share. Here we go. So tonight's presenter is Heather Killen, and she is the Program and Communications Coordinator with Volunteer Nova Scotia and the King's Volunteer Resource Centre. She has volunteered and worked in the nonprofit sector for most of her professional life. And yeah, she's got quite a bit of experience in all of this stuff. So I'm just wondering if we want to do a really quick introduction of folks who are on the call, just so Heather, you have an idea of what kinds of groups are here. So I'll just call out a couple of names. So Christina, did you want to unmute and just say your name, what group you're with, and maybe where you're located in the province?
Sure. First of all, I want to say hi to Heather. We met, I was at the KVRC event was it last week? Yeah. It seems like so long ago. So I'm with the Nova Scotia Nature Trust, and I'm the volunteer and outreach coordinator with that organization. So I'm really excited to hear everything that we're going to be talking about today. We do a lot of work with volunteers all across the province, and of course, some of our lands have trails on them. So this will be really interesting.
Great.
Oh,
Thanks.
it's nice
Thank
to
you.
see you again.
Yes, you too.
Mm.
And Claudine. Oh, we can hear you. That's
Oh,
you're
okay.
connected.
Sorry. I'm Claudine LaForce. I'm with the executive director with the Nova Scotia Off-Road Riders Association. I just moved to my new house that we built on Sunday. So it's not quite finished. So we've had workers outside our windows and inside the house as well for the last few days, and it's very unsettling. But I do have internet connection not in the right place. So that's why I say it's kind of intermittent. So I'll do my best to not freeze and come in and out on you guys.
Great. Glad you can
Thank
make
you.
it. And congratulations on the move.
Oh, thank you.
You survived.
Yeah, so far.
Okay, and next on my list is Chris. Oh no, we already saw Christine. Holly.
Hello, I'm Holly Woodle, and I've been involved in all parts of different aspects of trails and parks and ecology, etc., etc. Um, and I'm not slowing down in my old age. It's terrible. And I think that's all I've got to say. Hello, Janet.
Hello. Thanks for coming, Holly. And Leslie.
Hello. Sorry, I don't use Zoom a lot anymore, so I'm on Teams all day, so I'm like reminding myself where all the buttons are. Um, I am Leslie. I volunteer mainly in anything communications with the Musquodoboit Trailway Association. But we've had a lot of like work done lately on the trail, and I think like collectively we're all feeling a little burnt out and could use some help. So hoping to kind of recruit some more volunteers this spring and summer. So yeah, we're hoping to get some brainstorming done and hopefully some inspiration out of this
Mhm.
session.
Believe. It's a
Great.
big topic, and I wish that it was like there was a quick formula, but I think it's a lot like planning a hike. You know, you have to know the people that you're working with, you know, what their skill level is and what they need to take. Like if you're planning a hike,
Mhm.
you know, what type, if somebody has mobility issues, for example, you can't take them to, you know, Cape Split. So planning is like it's the biggest part of the actual the process, so that you need to know, you know, exactly the skills you need and the type of person that has those skills. And yeah, we also kind of have to consider the availability too. So anyway, we're going to look at a whole different, you know, different aspects of this for the whole thing. And I'm just, I'm sorry, I've jumped right in there. I hope that was okay, Janet.
That's great. No, there's so much that, yeah, there's a lot to this. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, let's get started. Thanks everyone for introducing yourselves. And I'm gonna take myself off video and audio just so you can focus on Heather. And yeah, take it away.
Okay, so I guess, like I said, I think people get discouraged because a lot of people are fine, you know, that what I hear very often is that people aren't volunteering like they used to. And I think the first thing that we need to do is change the expectations around that because people are volunteering. And what I want to do is start by looking at a national survey. Now, this is a pre-COVID survey, and you know, later on in the evening, I like to talk about a new survey that we want to do because we want to update the statistics. But I think it's really useful to look at this because it shows you exactly who is volunteering and the rate of volunteering and how they're volunteering across Canada. So this survey, as I said, was done in 2018, and it basically, you know, asked people across the different sectors, you know, the age groups, socioeconomics, the whole thing. how much they had volunteered over the previous year. And basically, they found that just over two-fifths of Canadians, almost 50%, well, 41%, had volunteered during the previous year. Anyway, they looked at, why did people volunteer? What were their motivations? How did they volunteer? That kind of thing. So we'll just start with, and I'm just going to look at Nova Scotia because that's where we are. So a lot of groups that I've talked to have said over the years, well, young people, they don't volunteer anymore. So when you look at the different age groups, the reality is they do volunteer, but the way they volunteer, I think, is different. So people who are, 15 to 24 years old, they have the highest rate, or one of the highest rates of volunteering, 46%. But when you look at it, they give one of the lowest amounts of time, so 54%. So the top bar, the pink, is the rate at which the number of them that volunteered, and the blue is how many hours they would have given that previous year. And so then you get down to the 24 to 34-year-olds. Again, it's a younger cohort. And I would say that these next two groups are probably the groups that have children. So when you look at it, again, the 25 to 34-year-olds, well, they're probably just getting started in their careers. They may have started their families, that kind of thing. And then the next, again, 55% for 35 to 44-year-olds, they volunteer. But again, the number of hours, it's less. But when you look at people in that age group, chances are the 35 to 44-year-olds, those are the people that have children. So they're working, they've got kids, and when they do volunteer, they probably volunteer directly towards their children's, maybe their school, band, recreation, that kind of thing. The other thing is too, with the younger, like the college kids, they would be doing, volunteer work kind of strategically. It would be short term. It would be something that would probably enhance their skills and their contacts for their resumes. And as I said, a little older, when the family age people, it would be more related to their children. Now, when you get into the sort of middle age groups, again, there's 45 to 54 years old. They've got 50% rate of, and they give almost 187 hours. And it continues to go. So once you get into the middle years, I would say that people, they have a little more control over their schedules. And these people, if you're looking for, say, a treasurer or somebody for a long term, like a board position, these are the people that you might want to consider, because I think at this point they're kind of looking to not necessarily build their skills in their employment, their resumes, but they're looking more to kind of enhance their lives and their quality of life. So depending on the role that you're trying to fill, you can start thinking in terms of age groups. So let's say it's social media. There's, you don't need to have consistency necessarily with that. Like in other words, someone who's doing your social media, they don't have to commit to, say, a year or 2 years, the way, say, a board member would need to commit to an organization. So, and it's something that can be done, at any time. It can be done remotely. So social media would probably be something that you would want someone younger doing. And as I said, once you get into the 65 to 74-year-olds, those people tend to go, they're the ones that say, I volunteer with everything. And they do. They give, excuse me, the highest number of hours. So it's one of the highest, 53, the rate of 53%, and 217 hours on average they would have given. So this is the part that's really interesting. So this graph shows the types of volunteering that they're doing. So these people, 45% reported that they were formal volunteers. So in other words, groups like the Canadian Cancer Society, say the Lions Club, Red Cross, it's typically organized volunteer work. So it's probably done at a certain time, the role is very specific. 78% were informal volunteers. So a lot of the groups like the animal rescues, they're a little less structured Facebook groups. They don't have it. They don't have the same structure, and people can give as they are able to give to these organizations, and there's more flexibility in the roles. So I think that's why you're seeing a larger percentage. They tend to be more flexible. And one of the things that I've heard, the reasons that people don't volunteer, there's actually two main reasons. When you ask people, well, do you volunteer? Do you not volunteer? A lot of people will say that, first of all, um, it was just nobody asked. So, I mean, something simple like that. If you know somebody, like, for example, a younger person who's really good with social media and you're looking for someone to do that, maybe it's just a simple matter of asking. The other reason that people don't volunteer is that they're a little bit concerned that they're going to, not be able to fulfill the commitment. So, I would be happy, for example, to help the Lions Club organize a breakfast, but I wouldn't necessarily be confident agreeing to meet, weekly or monthly or, you know, having regular follow, that kind of engagement. But if it was a one-off, marathons, community events, cleanups, things like that, these are all examples of community like informal volunteering. And I think that people are more willing to say yes to an ask like that. So if you had, say, a beach cleanup, that might be one way to get people interested in your organization. You're not asking them for a big commitment. It's a one-time thing. And maybe I think at that point, if the person, agrees to come and they have a positive experience, there's a better chance that they're going to come back. And it's a small ask rather than making a big ask right off the bat. I know one time I had come in, was really interested in one of the local museums, and I had just gone to the first meeting, and they say, "Oh, great, you're here. We need a treasurer. How would you like to be a treasurer?" You hit somebody up like that, and it's kind of, well, I don't know. I was just, finding out about you. So if you keep the ask small initially, you might have a better chance of getting them back for something a little more long term. So when you consider your organization um, and the roles that you need to fill, based on people's life seasons and possible motivations, what can you predict about people, potential volunteers? So I guess this is the part where I kind of ask you, to reflect on the roles that you need filled, and what ages do you think might be interested in short-term jobs? Like if you want to come off and have a discussion, I don't know, or I could keep talking, but this is the part where, I think, yeah.
Hi, it's Claudine. I want to
Hi.
say that we have events, and that seems to be, I have put a series of social media posts out asking for volunteers for the particular event. And I've really made a point, I think because of what I've learned from these seminars that we're going to, I've really made a point of saying, you don't need to be there all day. We only need you for little sections.
Exactly.
And just let us know what your time
Hmm.
limits are. And it has made a huge difference. Like I had one person say, we're going to be here for this race between this time and this time, and I'm available at that time. I said, great. We'll pass you on. We'll have a job especially for you for that. So I think that's made a huge difference. It's a little more challenging when we're looking for long-term volunteers, and for that for us means board members. That's a
Yeah.
long term, pretty much the one long-term thing we're looking for. That makes it a little more challenging, but I have found just by putting out social media posts and saying, if this is your interest, let us know and we'll work with you on and letting them know the time commitment that is,
Mhm.
and then people say, yeah, I could do that. It's only, 6 hours a month. I think I could do that. And so that seems to have made a difference.
Well, the thing is too, you're probably, excuse me, appealing to people based on their interests and their availability, and then kind of meeting them part way. And that helps a lot. I think people feel a little more like they're seen and they're valued that way if you're willing to work with them.
Mm.
So I think that's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a really great opportunity for trail groups is, to do that one-off trail maintenance day where it's like not building a bridge because you need very specialized skills for that. But
Mhm.
a general maintenance day where, low skill labor, but people come out and they have a nice time in the woods and then, well, maybe they learn a little bit and then they're a more experienced volunteer and then you can maybe invite them back for more and hopefully they'll get hooked on it. So, yeah.
Well, in terms of the more skilled jobs as well, I mean, maybe apprenticeship programs like reaching out to NSCC and, that because I think they have to have so many hours. So that's a possibility too. You probably, yeah.
I think the it's funny that this is reaffirming what we're trying to do right now because we are planning to do a little bit of like a spring, like summer, like, our trail's open all year round, but obviously it doesn't get used as often in the winter time.
Mm.
So we're planning on attempting a bit of like a spring cleanup of the main part of the rail trail and probably have like a barbecue and maybe like a scavenger hunt for kids and I'm helping plan the event, but I'm also as doing the communication side of things. Like we really don't have any like actual tactics to hand out to people, like ways to contact us, any of that kind of stuff. Um,
Mm.
Even like our signage needs updating at the physical trail itself with like proper contact info and like QR codes, like whatever it may be,
Mm.
to provide as much access to us as possible. So part of what I'm trying to work on that hopefully feeds into what you're saying here is like, do low commitment events and then make sure that people leave with a feeling of like maybe I can help further and
Mhm.
in like a low pressure way, provide them a way so that they know if they're thinking about it that they can email us here or call us here or whatever. So yeah, this feels reassuring that I'm
And
potentially on the right track.
well, and in a way, what you have is a really amazing resource because anybody who wants to get outside and be in the fresh air, I mean, the trail will probably sell itself. Being outside and, you know, um, I think people too, especially people who are new to the area, posters in around, different, like the grocery store, things like that, or do you like to get outside? Do you like, come help us with the trail? I mean, I think once they see the trail and that would be the motivation for them, because I mean, we have some amazing trails through here. Like I love, there's so many amazing ones. And I mean, if they had some kind of not the word is not ownership, but a stewardship, like that's an opportunity to build stewardship with people. So I think it's a great way of getting people interested, not only in the trail, but also in the camaraderie of the group. So,
It's how I became a volunteer for the trail. They hosted a
mhm.
litter event right when they had posted some volunteer positions. Within like 2 weeks, they were doing their litter cleanup for the year. So I went and I met everybody, and then we chatted further, and then I started volunteering and got on the board and everything. So I'm the living example.
Exactly.
Hopefully, we
And
just need more of them, more of me
yeah,
now.
but I think people do care about the environment. I think even still just walking in a nice place, where they feel safe and they feel, you know, because my aunt and uncle they were trail stewards, I think, in Timberley. And oh, Christy, I'm sorry. I noticed
That's
I'm not
okay.
used to this, people
No,
raising their hands. Okay.
it's okay.
So
Sorry.
anyway, yeah, so they loved it. I mean, they would go out for their walk and get their exercise, and a lot of seniors are looking for that. So seniors groups as well. So Christina, you raised your hand.
Sure. So, Leslie, I used to live in Muscatobit Harbor and was involved with the market. So, I would suggest that if they still do a community table out there, that might be a great way to connect with folks too, because they can head right over on to the trail,
I
after
was
the mark.
talking to Nick, our like treasurer, and I mean, he does everything. He's only treasurer because we don't have one, basically. He does all kinds of stuff. But um I was suggesting that we maybe have a chat with the farmers market about getting a table.
Yeah,
Maybe not all the time, but sometimes. But I mean, that
yeah,
farmers market's all year round too, and we have
yeah.
all kinds of positions that could be remote. They don't need to like, wait until summertime to do something about it. So I do wonder if maybe, I mean, it's nice to do it in the spring and summer, but also um, like that might be something to do as when people are paying attention to you less, like physically get out there too, just as a bit of a backup. But yeah, I have thought about doing that, so maybe I will actually follow through now.
It's a great way to connect with people, especially if you get a nice sunny day. There's lots of people coming out to the Railway
Yeah,
Museum, and it can be quite nice to,
yeah,
yeah,
for
good
sure.
environment. And the community pages on Facebook, which you probably already know too, but even if you can expand into Porters Lake and Gatesbrook and that area too, and just from a recruitment perspective,
Yeah, for
maybe
sure.
try that. Thanks.
Okay, and it kind of leads into two motivations for helping because I think people come out initially because they think maybe it might be a good way to meet people or it might be just a fun day. But what keeps people coming back are usually the motivations for. So, what are some possible motivations that people could have? Is what I found in if you're trying to sell something to someone, it's if you can connect with how they feel or what is important to them, you've got a better chance of being heard. And it's more about what you can do for them rather than what they can do for you. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but hopefully we'll get into it a little further. So when they asked people what were their motivations for volunteering, of course, 90% said contribute to the community. 75% said use their skills and experience. 59% personally affected by the cause. 51% improve health and well-being. So that would definitely fit in with, your trails. Network meeting people, 48%. And again, to come back to contribute to the community. So really, all of these things could work. Using skills and experience, if you could find some people who are apprenticing to be, landscapers or, um, carpenters, people like that, you may be able to, you know, tap into that. Um, According to geography, I'm not sure. Oop, okay, I'm lost where I am here. Okay. It's important when you do meet people to kind of connect the work. So you do get people coming in and, so to help clean up, just, remind them that what they're doing matters because people like to know that that their time and their energy that they're contributing is going to make a real difference to a cause that's aligned with their motivations. So people are more likely to stay when they feel that their contribution makes an impact and a mission that aligns with their personal values. So if people they want to be healthy, they could be trail wardens, or if they value the environment, then obviously this is a great way of raising awareness about natural spaces and why we need to protect them. So there's a lot that your program offers. Recognition. So then when you do get people, the big thing again is keeping them. And what I find is some people, larger organizations, they'll have like a dinner. And I know people like I have a friend who volunteers every year with Devour because he wants a t-shirt. So people, they do it because they feel good, but some people they do require recognition. So it could be, gifts of service. So small little things like a thank you card or I don't know, um, a t-shirt. It could be a t-shirt if your organization has those. Um, Even just thank you. Some people just they want to be heard. They want attention. So um, hugs, pats on the back. I mean, that's something that's kind of iffy. I'd be careful with that one, but so there's different things, and even just if somebody is working in the office with you, I don't know, but just maybe you're on the way to the post office. Can I do anything for you? Like little things like that. But people do look for recognition, and they look for, I guess, validation that their contributions matter.
Mm.
So it's really important, to make sure that you kind of connect the right. Um, Really get to know the people that you're working with and kind of hear not only why they're coming, but um, how you can help them feel like they're really contributing to the organization. So it's not just they're doing this for you, but you're doing, how do I put it? You have to do something back because sometimes people don't recognize that. I mean, time is one of the most valuable things we have. So, especially now where people, they're, depending on what age group, like you don't have a lot of spare time the way people used to. I mean, there was a time, you say 20 or 30 years ago, and I find older volunteers don't always recognize that. We're not always in control of our schedules, so that when people do give you time, it's a very valuable thing.
Yeah, Heather,
Um,
just on that, I think it's important too that when you have some event or something that's being done by volunteers and you get feedback from someone outside the organization and they say,
Share
"Oh my
it.
gosh, that was such a great event." Like taking
Hmm.
the 2 seconds it takes to sort of email that off or call
Exactly.
someone up and say, "Hey, did you know that this is the feedback we got?" And
Hmm.
people, like I've seen people be really affected by that. They're just like,
Hmm.
"Oh wow," it just makes their day. So even just passing on words of congratulations, I think goes.
Hmm.
Also, we just have a couple of comments
Oh, okay.
in the chat there.
Hmm.
So Holly had said, um, Cole Harbour Parks and Trails Association have trail stewards, ambassadors for the parks and trails. This is where we get 90% of our volunteers. So on the trail, and the rest come from community events off the trail. But it's a soft join. Let them walk in a reflective vest and talk with people, eventually joining us on the board of directors. Gradually, buy-ins work best for most. And then another comment Leslie had typed. My colleague Nick mentioned wanting to set up with levels of skill. Some can be more low key. He's always looking for those who can explore the wilderness trails with literal saws, with literal saws. um, Baby steps, starting with ones that walk the rail trail, like you're describing, might be a good step one. So seeking people out from NSCC or trade schools is a good option too.
Yes.
Good comments.
And the difference, even the high schools, some of them have volunteer programs, and I know some of the universities like Acadia. It seemed now I don't know if it's just the athletic students, but some of them are required to do so much volunteer work before they graduate. So it never hurts to reach out to schools. And to go back to the trail wardens, I think that in itself could be a really wonderful reason for people to volunteer. Because something that they could gain. I mean, just learning about the trails. If somebody knows the different plants along the trail, that it's a great way to learn about the forest. It's a great way, so that is something too that people would, you know, probably value, and you would be able to probably attract people just with that. So maybe that could be, if you have someone that's really experienced in the forest, maybe that would be a good way to get people out on a hike, like a foraging. I don't know if you have anybody that forages, but that's big, here in the valley, or mushrooms. I don't know. People who are experts with mushrooms, if you could get
We have
them.
someone on our board who loves mushrooms. She's on the Naturalist app 24/7. Yeah, I have it on my list to add to bug her and see if she's willing to take people along with her.
Yeah, and bird watchers. I
Yeah.
had one of my older friends, she could tell you it was wonderful to go for a walk with her because you could point out a flower, she would know exactly what the plant was. And if there was a bird singing, she'll, yes, that's a something warbler. I don't know any of those, but it's impressive. And that type of information, it's something that the older generation knows so much more. And it is a way to kind of bring together the generations if you're looking to get people working together. That type of knowledge, I mean, you just don't get that now from iPads. I mean, you can, but it's not the same thing. So anyway, once
Our
you do get,
library has a bird walk that technically is on our trail, but they just use the trail as a community organization. And yeah, it's on my list to actually get
partner with
engaged
them.
with them and
Yes.
I want to know when they're doing it so that I can share it and get people looped in and yeah, yeah.
Well, and I mean, yeah, and I mean, maybe it's a way the two groups could partner because libraries are looking for volunteers too, and maybe there's a way you can work together. you know?
Can I make
Yeah.
another suggestion?
Mm.
The Nova Scotia Bird Society is another great resource
Mm.
that might be able to put you in touch with folks that are in your area. And if you're looking for another organization to potentially partner with for outdoor related things, the Deanery is fantastic in Ship Harbor, and I know that they've done mycology walks and other types of events on their property at least. But Kim might have some people, some names she could give you that might be keen as well.
Ecology Action too. I wonder if they would have any programs that would be,
They might.
appropriate too.
Yeah, they might.
Mm.
Yeah, there are all kinds of partnerships that you can form to bring a neat experience to your trail. And I think that if someone has a really lovely experience on your trail, they'd be really more open to some kind of ask around whether it's, informal volunteering or maybe even more formal. So all of those events happening on trails are really important to draw those people in and connect them, like connect their hearts to your trail, because once they're hooked that way, they're gonna and if it's brought across to them that well, this takes work, this trail could fall apart if we don't have people working on it, right? Like
Yeah.
literally, it could happen, and so yeah. Anyway, just an idea.
Yeah, because it's such a valuable community resource, and if we don't have enough people, it's going to get lost. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the other thing is too, things like that raise awareness because people might drive by, but when they stop and actually take a walk, there's a whole different level of appreciation. So, and just bringing people in. And once they know about you, there's a better chance that they'll come back. So once you do get people, are there barriers in your organization? So, oh, sorry. Okay, backwards. I'm not used to doing this on Zoom. So when people do come, and I don't think this applies so much to this group. I know some of the more organized groups that have been established, sometimes there's cliques and there's roles that people have had for many years, and that when new people come in, do they feel welcome? And like I know sometimes it's very important when you're asking someone to volunteer to do a particular job to explain if this job has to be done at a certain time in a certain way and it's kind of inflexible. If there are reasons for that, it's very important to tell people. I had someone tell me this was one of the food banks here, and there was she was the treasurer, and she had been the treasurer for the last 20 years, and she was dying to get somebody to take over as treasurer. So she finally had a gentleman say, "Yeah, I'll do that, but I work during the day, so can we have the meetings at night?" She refused to do that. So the thing is, if people work during the day, it's kind of hard for them to help you. So flexibility is really important. And like I said, I don't think that that's necessarily an issue for this group, but sometimes these things are, um, you know, and then screening sometimes too. When people have a desire to help, like let's say you have a cleanup event, if somebody says, "Yeah, I really want to get involved," be sure and follow up right away because people get lost sometimes between the time they express that interest in helping and the time that they're actually contacted. Sometimes there's a lag and people's lives change. So, I mean, you lose people that way. They say that the attrition rate for new volunteers is like 30%. So, 3 out of every 10 people won't even, if you have a screening process, they won't even finish the screening process. When people feel motivated to help, they don't want to wait, long periods of time. It's good to get them involved, even in a small way, if you can. So um, maybe say, well, we're going to have a hike next week or something like that to get them, right away. Um, let's see. Finances are tight, so that's a big one too. For many people, like, can they afford to help? They might have the time, they may not be working, but can they afford the gas to get there? Is there any way that you could help them with transportation? Um, and I think it's really clear. It's really important to have clear expectations on jobs. So, when you go back to that part about planning the job, like what is it that they need to do? What exactly do they need to do? And how long is it going to take them? And to be perfectly honest about that, because sometimes you don't want to discourage someone, so you kind of, underplay how much time is involved, but people do get turned off if it turns out to be a larger commitment than they were ready for. Um, and again, when you ask someone, it's really important to kind of think not so much why the job needs to be done, but why they would want to do the job. And if you focus the ask that way, I think you've got a better chance of succeeding. So let's say you do need a treasurer. Um, if this person, if they've got the availability, I don't know if I would start right off asking for treasurer because that's kind of a big job, but um, just kind of sorry, it's late. Totally blank right now. Okay. So if you think that they would be a good treasurer or they could possibly help, just make it easy for them to help and just, is there a way that you can modify the job for their availability to suit their availability or anything like that? So the other thing is too, if you do have a good job description for the volunteers, and it seems like a lot of work initially, but in the end, if you use Volunteer Nova Scotia, which I'm going to talk about next, a lot of the work will be done. Like the more information that you can provide people, the better they can make a decision on whether or not they want to help. Our site, Volunteer Nova Scotia, I don't know if you've been on it, but it's like a job bank for volunteers. So I don't know. Oh, so that's one place. So we can go talk about that. So where to find volunteers again? So career and community resource fairs, high school and university campuses. Like I know Acadia does. It's like a career fair a resource fair every fall. So that's a good place to pick up potential volunteers, especially if you were looking for people who are studying, I don't know, biology, environment, that kind of thing. Um, posters work, social media, and Volunteer Nova Scotia. Volunteer Nova Scotia. Um, so yeah, if we can, did you have Volunteer Nova Scotia, or maybe I'll stop screen sharing and bring it up if everybody can. Yeah, okay. I'll see if I can find it, and we can have a look.
I've got it up here. Did you want me to
Oh,
share?
do you? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you,
Let's see.
yeah, if you could do that. Oh,
There we go.
Stuart's.
How's
Okay.
that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you go under the volunteer tab
Mhm.
and then maybe down below, okay, so if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, get started. Yeah, sorry, it's
Oh,
the get started part.
sorry.
Yeah,
Let me give you all like
oh,
motion sickness.
that's the whirlwind tour of Volunteer Nova Scotia. Yep, there you go. That red button. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, there. Okay.
Yep. So
Uh,
now this is where all of that information comes in handy. So people, potential volunteers, can search and filter according to what they're interested in. So in your case, you would register under probably health. Um, Also, I think there should be environment. So there's a number of categories that you can register under. And if you register as an organization,
right,
people
sports
can,
recreation.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this is where volunteers look for opportunities. So they filter according to what they're interested in and other search options. So these are the skills too. So let's say you were a carpenter and you were interested in giving carpentry skills. You could put in under maybe housing. I think we have housing in there somewhere, and then just check off the different. And then if you actually scroll down to the bottom, you'll see
Oh,
this is just yeah. So this is just the newest, jobs. So food bank volunteers, you can see there's a number of, we probably have over 1,000 organizations registered in the system. And I think it's close to 3,000 volunteers. People are looking for job opportunities. And so basically, these jobs kind of, um, some of them are short term, some of them are long term. If they're ongoing, again, treasurers, actually, the board positions I've heard actually fill quite well. So I was surprised that there was at least one organization they were able to fill the treasurer position pretty quickly on this. This is a great one thing, especially if you're looking for newcomers, people if you're people new to the community, they're looking for ways to volunteer and to meet other people. So we have a lot of newcomers who've registered. Um, what else? If you go up under the organization portal, you can register. Okay, so yeah, that's good. That would work. So if you're an organization, you can register. So this is just the initial, what is your organization? And the way I think, because Hike Nova Scotia is kind of an umbrella, if you decide, say, to look for trail wardens or ambassadors, maybe um, register under the name, I guess, of the I guess would it be Hike Nova Scotia or Walk Nova Scotia? What's Hike Nova Scotia?
Well, yeah, Hike Nova Scotia, we do have a listing already, but the main job we have is for the walk leader, a walking group leader
Okay.
position, and so we have that in your system for sure. Yeah.
But if they wanted to have individual, um, for each group in the province,
Mm.
maybe register under Hike Nova Scotia and then whatever community it is.
Well, it'd probably make more sense for each of the groups here. Yeah, if you're a formal group, then register under your own group's name for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, say Hike Nova Scotia, then the community.
Mm.
And then you can, post as many jobs as you like.
Yeah.
It's free. And as I said, I mean, we do, they've been quite successful. We can track the number of people that are applying and
Mhm.
they've had some success. So, I mean, it's worth a try.
Yeah. And so when you register, you get a login and you can log in and
You
then
do.
add information, add jobs, take jobs away, that
Hmm.
kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty easy.
Great. So is anyone on the webinar now? Are any of you registered through Volunteer Nova Scotia yet?
I'm not to my knowledge. I'm definitely going to. I'll go back to the team and
Yeah.
make sure that we've been working on job descriptions. They're not quite finalized yet. Nick and I have been writing them all down, but we need everyone else to look at them before we actually do anything with them, basically. Um, but yeah, we have quite a
Yeah.
few that we'd like to get up. So once we solidify what titles we want and what we want them to be doing and our exact wording, then we will definitely be putting them up here.
That's
And
half the
100,
battle. That is
yeah,
half the battle. It really is. That's the hard part. And then once you get it up there, the rest is easy. It's
Mm.
just a
yeah,
matter of keeping people when they come.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it is articulating what it is exactly that you want because I mean, there's putting a general call out for volunteers just because, or what if you get a bunch and then you don't know what to do with them, or
yeah,
they
And they're
respond to a
not
call.
suitable.
Yeah,
yeah.
and so you do have to think through it. But once you've thought through it, then it's just, yeah, putting it out there and see who comes.
And the more categories, and the more ways that you can kind of,
Mm,
it helps increase your chances in the filters and in the searches.
yeah, like
Yeah.
all the skill levels and things. Yeah.
Mm.
And
And you
all,
can
yeah.
just if you want guidance, I mean, a lot of them are some of the job descriptions, you can just go with that. And there's also Chat GPT, that does a lot too.
Mm.
It can
Oh, and I
give you,
notice here there's a field here, positions where I can practice English. So again, the new
yes.
audience, that's really yeah, I mean that's a great motivator for people to get out and be able to
Hmm.
socialize
And
and
I think they do search according to geography. So
yeah.
I think there is that option.
Yeah.
And you can pre-screen people as well. Not that it would be quite so important for you, but you can see the qualifications and kind of get an idea of whether or not this person would be suitable for the position.
Right. Yeah, that's a great resource.
And we also, once a position is posted, we also share on social media channels as well. So,
Right. So yeah, you have your, oh, I need to get to a different part of the site in order to see that, I think. Yes, home. And then your
yep.
down at the
And
bottom, maybe?
what for the social media?
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Yeah. Right
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
No, that's KVRC.
Oh,
Volunteer Nova Scotia. Yeah.
right, right.
Gonna have to check that one.
Yes.
Volunteer Nova Scotia. Oh boy. Okay.
Wrong one.
Okay, well, I think too, anyway, look us up, Volunteer Nova Scotia. I will have to talk to Carla about that. Because originally when we started, we were KVRC. Like technically, Volunteer Nova Scotia is actually just job bank. So,
Right.
but then people were thinking, but is that only for Kings County? So we decided to go with Volunteer Nova Scotia because we are for the province,
Mhm.
not just for Kings County.
Right.
The only other thing I have to talk about today is Volunteer Canada and a project that they're working on their national action strategy. And I think when we started the presentation, I talked about that survey that was done in 2018. And of course, this is pre-COVID. And Volunteer Canada, which is kind of the national volunteer organization, is working towards, I mean, we all recognize that it's getting difficult to get volunteers. So they're working on a national action strategy. What they want to do is gather as much information from across the province as they can on the current state of volunteering. And, what the engagement level is, what type of resources are needed in the communities, especially in rural communities. I think it's important for everybody to have input. I think it's an opportunity to talk about how maybe we need public transportation in some areas. I don't know if it's going to work, but the thing is, I think the goal is to, from a national level, lobby the federal government on behalf of the nonprofit sector. So we're going to be organizing meetings in June. I've got one planned already in Dartmouth, and we're going to probably do the Valley, Digby, and we want to have eventually one up in Truro, in the northern part. We want to hit all of the regions. We're not going to be doing it all in June, but over the next little bit. And what we're trying to do is get as many people, from across the sector as we can to give them this information. There's also a survey online that you can fill out that asks you basically you know, if you're struggling for volunteers, what type of resources would be helpful, that kind of thing. So if you could even just fill out the national survey, it's really important because we need to gather as much information from Nova Scotia as we can. And these consultations are taking place across Canada. So, and if you want any more information, I'm working with some other groups to set up the discussions, and we'd like to get us, and we'll have cookies and
Well, I'm there.
yeah, that's right. I know.
Except
If
for,
you've got to have food.
yes, that's right. That's a big tip for volunteers. Always have
Hmm.
food, always have treats. So yeah, in a follow-up email, we'll definitely include a link to where the information on the consultations and the survey and all of that, so that you can give hopefully some feedback.
Hmm.
But are there any questions, any more specific questions about volunteering and recruitment and how to attract more folks to your organizations? And I do have a question. And it's more about, we're trying to attract more different kinds of people to our
Yeah.
organizations these days too. And any tips or tricks for, reaching out and kind of getting beyond the folks we almost always see at the same table over and over again, right?
I The best way is to ask. That's what we have the same problem. So I'm making an active effort to reach out to groups like iSense if you're looking for newcomers, or if you're looking for, people from First Nations, I would contact them. So I'll just be direct. I don't know how else we could do it other than to just reach out and ask. Because that's the number one reason people don't volunteer is that they were never asked. That really is the number one reason. So,
Yeah, yeah, just put the ask out. And I guess too, if it's if there's language
Well,
or the issues around that, then maybe having, some folks who can speak the language, interpreters or that kind of thing available.
I'd start with iSands.
Yeah.
They're quite good.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And then
Mm.
what about for folks who any tips around being more inclusive around different physical abilities?
Mm. People first. I would talk to, you
Mhm.
know, it's best to, I think you really have to go to the people
Mhm.
directly, and just say, how can we be more inclusive when
Mhm.
we, you know, there's no one like, I can't, put myself in someone else's shoes. Like I know if
Mhm.
somebody is in a wheelchair, for example, even just where you just don't, until you're in that situation, you just can't possibly know what they need or how you best support them. So I would say just ask.
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't know. That may not be the right answer, but it's the best one I've got because you never assume anything. That's what I found. And it's better to show an interest than to just avoid it.
Yeah, yeah. And also there are organizations that seem to be doing it well. I know that Mission
Hmm.
Mart is a secondhand clothing store in HRM. And I know because my nephew is involved as a volunteer there, and I know that they definitely have volunteers from all different kinds of backgrounds there. And
Hmm.
it would be interesting to sort of sit down with their volunteer recruitment person and just say, hey, if you know of another organization that is doing it well, then just contact them and say, hey, what are
Exactly.
some of the things you're doing to make it easy
Hmm.
for folks
I
and
know, I know there's people first, and then also, Autism Nova Scotia. Like there's little things that they could probably, even just lighting, you take it for granted, but lighting, depending on the lighting, it can really
Mhm.
affect people. So I think if there's that concern, it's better to just reach out to the organization and
Mhm.
for best practices. And we are trying to develop some of our DEI resources, but like I said, in the meantime, I think it's best to just get it from the source.
Mhm. Right. Right. Any other questions or comments? Advice, good ideas that's worked for you that you might want to share with others?
Um, I don't think I have any advice because we're only just really digging into this ourselves now. But this was really great, and it did like we've already been kind of working on plans, but
Mhm.
I think my main goal out of this was just to make sure that there wasn't like big gaps in what we were trying to do that were like so obvious that we could have been focusing on this whole time. And I mean, the job board thing
Mhm.
is a huge one. But I think yeah, that's probably the biggest gap that makes me the most grateful that I attended this.
Mhm.
But the rest of it really just was helpful, but also just kind of reaffirmed that I think we're kind of on the right track on our end. It's just a matter of actually putting it into practice. Will be, foot on the
Based on the
gas.
comments, yeah, based on the comments, I heard you guys could actually give this, because you've got the right ideas from the sounds of it. So you've really thought it through. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you poke around on the Volunteer Nova Scotia website, there's all kinds of resources on there too, and some recorded webinars I remember seeing and on more
Yes.
specific topics and that kind of thing. So there's all kinds of resources out there. Like if you're looking for like a volunteer recruitment plan template or something like,
Yeah.
like there are all kinds of things out there, just so that you make sure you're not forgetting some key little points here and there. But the broad brushstrokes, yeah, I think.
We have a really good workshop on neurodiversity by
Mm,
Kim Hume, and that is worth listening to.
mhm.
Yeah.
Great.
And it challenges the way too. I mean, people sometimes are reluctant to incorporate people with, other abilities, but some jobs are just perfect, you
Mhm.
know, and it's just providing us a really supportive environment. And I think too, when you have people around the table with different abilities, that's what really makes a strong team. And it's just a matter of challenging the way we think about roles and think about working together.
Mhm.
That, yeah.
Right. And in the chat here, we've got we're filling our event list, hoping to get together a list of volunteer positions for each event. So Claudine's already working on that. And then Holly says, love of walks, bikes, environment trails, joining their community where they love to walk and bike. What isn't to like as a volunteer? And sometimes cookies.
Sometimes cooking. Yeah, exactly. And each time, just a different thing. That's the way I would do it. Talk about bike trails one day, and then in social media, and just mix it up as much as you can.
Yeah. Find the best fit for the volunteer. Granny may not be the best person for chainsaw work.
Exactly.
Or me for that
Exactly. But then
matter.
again, maybe she can chop wood. You never know. They're tough, some of them,
Yeah, great. All right. Okay, well, if there aren't more questions or comments, I do want to thank you, Heather, so much for taking the time
Thank
with us
you.
and sharing your knowledge and experience with us. Great ideas, great guidance.
Thank you.
And yeah, what we're going to do is we'll follow up in the next day or two with an email that'll have a copy of the slides. And there will be this webinar recording link so you can watch it again if you like. There'll also be a link to a feedback survey so you can let us know how the webinar is going. And then also just a link to the other webinars in our series so you can go and watch any of those that you might have missed. But yeah, I just want to thanks again, Heather, and thanks to all of you for coming out, and thank you for
Thank
running
you.
the organizations that you're running, because you're obviously doing wonderful work keeping our trails going and getting people active on the trails, and you're engaging volunteers, and you're just pillars of the community. And so if we can help you in any way we can, we will. So keep doing all the great work that you're doing. It's really wonderful to know that there's this kind of community out there, this caliber of people.
And you were a really nice group to present to. I really appreciated it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. That was great.
And if you
Thanks.
have
Thank
any
you.
questions, email me info@volunteernovascotia.ca. I'd be
Yep,
happy
Oh,
to help.
sure.
I'll include all the contact information and the web links in the follow-up email. So thanks everyone, and happy trails.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Have a great
Thanks.
night.
Take care.